Truth Be Told Project.
In the last episode, we talked about health drift. What happens when your body quietly carries the cost of a life that's lived on autopilot? We talked about fatigue, about stress living in your nervous system, about how neglect, overwork, and numbing all show up in your physical health. And if you're honest, you probably saw some of yourself in that. I know I've seen myself in it. But here's what often happens next. When your body is worn down, when your mind is overloaded, when you feel ashamed of how far you've let things slide, you don't just pull back from sleep and good habits. You pull back from people, from community, from being known. You keep showing up in the building. Maybe you keep dropping "I'm good" in conversations, but slowly you stop letting anyone see what's really going on underneath your surface church smile. That's what this episode is about. We've talked about drift in your body. Now we're going to talk about drift in your community. What happens when you stop belonging and start just attending? Let's paint a picture. It's Sunday morning. You pull into the church parking lot. A few minutes later than you planned, you sit in the car for a moment and scroll your phone just to delay walking in church. You finally go inside, and you know the drill. You smile at the greeter, nod at a couple of familiar faces, joke about the weather or whatever with somebody you barely know. You find your usual row or pew to sit at. Usually it's in the back, way in the back. If you're in that season, worship starts. You sing some of the songs, you stand, you sit, you listen. It's not that you feel nothing. Sometimes a lyric hits you. Sometimes a line in the message lands deep. But the whole time you're also aware of something else. I don't really belong here like I used to. And I don't really belong anywhere else either. You slip out as soon as the last prayer ends and the benediction is given. You avoid eye contact with people who might try to have an actual conversation with you. You get in the car, you scroll a bit, you drive home. And there's this strange mix of, I did the right thing by coming, and I still feel alone. Throughout the week, the group chats are on mute. You leave messages on red. You say, "We should hang out sometime," and secretly hope no one schedules it. You used to go to small group. Now you always have something else to do. You used to serve. Now you're on a break. That somehow turned into a lifestyle. You're not anti-community. You're just drifting. You still talk about my church, my community, my people. But if someone asks, who really knows what's going on with you right now? You'd have to think long and hard. That's community drift. What is community drift? Let's put a definition on it. From a discipleship lens, I'd say community drift is what happens when you shift from being truly known, connected, and engaged in the body of Christ to being mostly around people of God without really walking with them. You slide from belonging to observing, from family to audience, from we to they. And on the outside, you might look the same, still in the building, still in the chat, still liking posts, still saying, "Love y'all" in the comments. But on the inside, your spiritual life is becoming private. Your struggles are becoming secret. Your presence is becoming optional. Community drift is not always, "I left church and deconstructed everything." Sometimes it's, I sat in the same place with the same people and quietly disconnected in my heart. Before we go further, we need to answer this. Why does this even matter? Isn't my relationship with God ultimately between me and Him? Well, that's a yes and no to that question. Your salvation is deeply personal, but your walk with Jesus was never meant to be private. Scripture talks about one body, many members, bearing one another's burdens, confessing sins to one another, encouraging one another daily, stirring one another up to love and good works, not neglecting meeting together. There are whole parts of discipleship you literally cannot obey outside of real community. You can stream sermons, follow Christian pages, consume Christian podcasts, but you cannot be sharpened, be corrected in love, be carried in dark seasons, practice sacrificial love, or experience the each other part of following Jesus without actual messy, embodied, inconvenient people in your life. Community is not extra credit, a nice bonus, an optional add-on for extroverts. Community is part of God's design. So when community drifts, everything else does too. Here are some signs you're in community drift. Let's name it. As I walk through these, just notice where you quietly say, yeah, that's me right now. The first sign is you're around people, but not really known. You show up maybe weekly, maybe once a month, maybe in and out. You say hi, you chat about surface stuff, you know people's names, but nobody knows what you're actually struggling with, what's actually going on in your marriage, what's really happening in your thought life, where you're drifting. If you disappeared for 3 months, people might notice you're gone, but they wouldn't know why. That's drift. The second sign is you treat church as content, not family. You might critique the worship or the choir, compare preachers like YouTube channels, judge service length like it's a show you can rate. You consume church like you do Netflix. When you talk about your community, you mostly talk about how good the preaching is, how good the music is, how it makes you feel during the service, but not about how you're walking with people, how you're being challenged, how you're serving. Church becomes a place to get fed and to consume, not a people to live and grow with. Third, you ghost when things get real. When someone invites you into deeper connection, asks a hard question, calls something out in love, or needs something from you, your instinct is to pull back. You leave the message on read. You say, I've just been busy. You forget to reply. Slowly, you disappear from spaces where people might actually see behind your mask. Shallow, sometimes it feels safe. Sometimes being deep feels dangerous. So you drift. The fourth sign that you are in a community drift is you're living off old connections. You talk about community in the past tense. Back when I was in college, or my old church used to, whatever, we used to have this group that. You have stories of closeness, of vulnerability, of accountability. But when you look at right now, it's mostly just nostalgia. There's no current circle who really walks with you. You're living off old bread. The fifth sign that you're in community drift is you feel more like a critic than a contributor. When you think about your church or community, your mind goes mostly to what's wrong, what's missing, what they're not doing right. You might even be accurate sometimes. The issues you see may be very real, but you don't bring them to God. and ask, how can I serve here? You just sit at the edge and talk about them. Critique replaces contribution. That's a form of drift. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to slowly isolate myself and stunt my growth. There are reasons. So let's name a few. One of the main reasons people pull away and drift away from community is church hurt and betrayal. For a lot of you, community drift didn't start with laziness. It started with pain. You opened up and were gossiped about. You trusted a leader and they abused that trust. You felt invisible in a place that preached love. You were used for your gift, but not cared for as a person. Your questions were dismissed. Your pain was minimized. Your story was mishandled. So your heart made a decision. I believe in God. I'm just not going to risk people like that again. You might still show up. You might still serve, but inside, you're guarded. There's walls you built around your heart. And truthfully, that's understandable. I've been there a couple of times throughout my Christian walk. But I also learned that it's dangerous. It's a dangerous place to be, because the very place where healing and growth are meant to happen, community, started to feel like a threat. So you and I drifted. Second reason why people pull back and fall into community drift is because there's shame and struggle. Sometimes community drift starts when our sin does. You slip back into a habit you thought you conquered. And for sometimes you did conquer it. You got tangled up in a relationship you know isn't healthy. You made choices you swore you never make. You start picking up a bottle again. You may have started smoking again. And instead of bringing that into the light, you thought, if they knew this, they would see me differently. So you slowly stop showing up, stop answering, stop engaging, stop serving. Not because you hate them, but because you can't stand the idea of being seen in this condition. The shame isolates, always. Third, there is busyness and a drift in your time, in your schedule. This is another reason why people pull back. Sometimes it's less dramatic. Life just, it fills up. You have a new job. You have a new baby. You have new responsibilities. You might have just gotten married. You have a longer commute. You're tired. You're fatigued. You tell yourself, it's just a season, but that season never gets reevaluated. What used to be sitting, lingering, meals with people, unhurried conversations becomes, let me see if I can make it. I'll try to stop by. I'll catch the replay. You don't choose isolation. You just never choose connection. And drift happens by default. The fourth reason why people pull back and disconnect from or drift from community is individualism and the me and Jesus type of Christianity our culture preaches. Our culture preaches, you do you. You live your truth. This is your journey. That mentality can sneak into our faith. It sounds like, I don't need church to love God. People just complicate my walk with God. It's just me and Jesus, and there's a part that feels holy, but it ignores the way Scripture talks about one body, one family, one bride, living stones being built together. You can't practice the one another's by yourself. Individualism disciples you into community drift while letting you feel spiritual. The fifth reason why people pull away and drift from community is for comfort and control. For some of us, community drift is rooted in control. Being deeply connected means You can be misunderstood. People can have expectations of you. They might ask things of you you don't want to give. They might tell you things you don't want to hear. Distance is a way to keep your life at a comfortable temperature. You share enough to look open, but not enough to actually be known. You keep people at arm's length because closeness means loss of control. And I know a lot of times there are deeper issues at play in this. A lot of times we have attachment issues. Sometimes our trust has been broken a lot of times, and it's hard to trust people. And I'm going to do a season on relationships and picking safe people in the church because, truth be told, everybody in the church is not safe for you to be around or to share information with or to develop a closeness with. Everybody is not safe in church. So be looking forward to that season when we discuss that. We've been saying in this series, you are not just a spirit. You are a soul. That's what you love, attach to, and trust. You're also a mind, what you think, what you replay, what you interpret. You're also a body, your nervous system, your habits, your energy, and all of this happens in time. Community interacts with all of that. When you drift from community, your soul loves to get retrained. You attach more deeply to screens, fantasies, or isolation. You slowly stop expecting God to move through people. It also affects the mind. Your thoughts go unchallenged. Lies echo louder because no one is helping you test them. Stories you tell yourself about others go unchecked. Drift also affects the body. Loneliness and stress show up in your sleep. It shows up in your energy. You're anxious. It shows up in your anxiety. Your body starts expecting to carry everything alone. Also, drifting from community affects your time. Your calendar reflects your isolation. There's always no time for community, but somehow there's time for escape, whether it be into a screen, into television, or some kind of self-destructive habit. Community by design regulates your nervous system. It sharpens your mind and it anchors your soul. Community drift does the opposite. Let's break it down in your language. Community by default says, I'll come when I can. If they really want me there, they'll chase me. I'll stay at a safe level. No one needs to know too much. Or I'll leave when I get hurt again and again. I just don't have the energy for people. Default community is shallow, it's sporadic, it's consumer based, it's easily offended, it's easily avoided. You attend, you drift, you wonder why you feel alone. Community by design, on the other hand, says, I'm not meant to follow Jesus alone. I want people to know my real life, not just my church face. I accept that community will be inconvenient and sometimes messy. I want to be the kind of friend I'm praying for. I will risk being known even if I've been hurt before. Design community is intentional. It's honest, it's engaged, it's generous, it's resilient. It's not perfect. It does not mean you're best friends with everybody. It doesn't mean every church is safe or healthy. It means wherever I'm planted, I want to move forward and move toward real family, not just spiritual entertainment. It means wherever I'm planted, I want to move toward real family, not just spiritual entertainment. All right, here's the Live by Design spotlight for community drift. We'll call it the circle of connection. It's a visual way to tell the truth about where you are and take one step toward design. If you can, grab a notebook. If not, just listen for now. Step 1, draw 3 circles. Draw 3 concentric circles like a target. You know what a target looks like, right? Label them. The center is the inner circle. The middle, shared walk. The outer is the casual community. Here's what they mean. The inner circle is 2 or 3 people who know your real story. They see behind the scenes, can tell when you're off, can challenge you, and you'll listen. The shared walk is 5 to 12 people you see regularly, share life and faith with, serve alongside, can text for prayer, actually do one another life with. Casual community is these are the people you worship with, share space with, know by name, but you don't regularly share your heart with. Step 2, I want you to put names in the circles. Be honest. Who is in your inner circle right now? Write their names. Who's in your shared walk circle? Your small group, close friends, ministry team, etc. Who's in your casual community? Folks you call my church, my people, but you're not deeply connected to. If any circle is basically empty, just note that. No shame, just honesty. Step 3, notice the gaps. I want you to ask, where am I strong? Maybe you have a solid inner circle, but your broader involvement is thin. Where am I weak? Maybe you have a big casual circle, but no one really knows you. Pay attention to statements like, honestly, I don't think anyone really knows what's going on with me right now. If I hit a crisis at 2 in the morning, I'm not sure who I'd call. I used to have an inner circle, but geography and drift have scattered it. These aren't meant to depress you. They're meant to give you clarity. Step 4, choose one connection move. This is where you ask, what is one concrete step I can take in the next 7 to 14 days to move toward design and community? It could be texting someone you trust. Hey, I've been more distant than I want to be. Can we grab some coffee? Go have some lunch? I want to talk honestly. Actually showing up to a small group you keep skipping. Signing up to serve somewhere that matches your gifts. So you're not just in rows, but in circles. Unmuting a group chat and intentionally responding, not just lurking. Also, having a conversation with your spouse about dreaming up what healthy community could look like in this season. Write it like this: my next connection move is blank, and I will take that step by blank. You want to give yourself a date. You're not trying to build an instant best friend list. You're taking one step out of drift toward design. Here are some reflection questions you can sit with and journal through. When was the last time someone saw the real me? Struggles, doubts, temptations, not just my church face. Who was that? What past hurt or disappointment in community still shapes how close I'm willing to let people get to know me? Question number 2, what past hurt or disappointment in community still shapes how close I'm willing to let people get to me now? What would it look like to bring that wound to God instead of letting it keep me isolated? Question number 3, do I treat church more like a show to rate or a family to belong to? Question 4, am I waiting for the perfect church community instead of showing up imperfectly where I am? Question number 5, when someone in community reaches out, invites or pursues me, what's my usual response, and what does that reveal about my heart? Question number 6, in what ways am I expecting community without being willing to be community for someone else? Do I want friends but resist being a friend? Question 7, if I believe that God often leads and guides me through his people, what's one way I would lean in differently this month? For this episode, your words to live by could center on 2 realities. And those realities are we need each other. And the second is God calls us to not give up on each other. You might anchor in that familiar call, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. And also in the call to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Put those together in your own words. I am not meant to follow Jesus alone. I will not neglect the people God has given me. I will bear and be born. I will move from audience to family, from hiding to being known, from drifting on the edges to walking in the middle of the story with others. Those are your words to live by for community. So if you've been listening to this episode thinking, yeah, I've been on the edges, I've been drifting from the people God meant to use in my healing, hear me. This is not God shaming you. This is God inviting you back into family. We're not meant to fight spiritual, emotional, or health drift in isolation. At some point, you need people who can spot what you can't see, remind you of what you've forgotten, and carry you when you're too tired to walk by yourself. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about something that community will definitely touch. God doesn't just want to fix your life, he wants to replant you in a people. You don't have to build that overnight. You don't have to pretend you're not scared. You just have to be willing to say, Lord, I don't want to drift on the edges anymore. Show me where to lean in. Give me courage to be known again and make me the kind of person who makes community safer and more beautiful for someone else. Because community by default will turn you into a spectator, but community by design will help you live the kind of life you keep hearing about in these episodes. Not by default, but by design, God's design. Until next time, remember, don't just live by default, live by design, God's design. Peace.